Crochet podcast. This is episode number 5, episodio número 5. If you've tuned in before, then hello and welcome back. If this is your first time tuning in, I hope you enjoy what I have to say. My name is Elizabeth. I am Crochet Cakes on Instagram and on Ravelry. You can follow me on either social media platform if you wish. I also wanted to mention that we have a Ravelry group. Yes, I created a Ravelry group, which I mentioned in the last episode, and I want to say a huge shout out and thank you to about 5 people that before I mentioned that I even had a Ravelry group had already found it on Ravelry and had joined the group, so thank you. I do have a couple of threads going on at the moment. There is an introduce yourself thread where you could just tell me a bit about yourself, why you started crafting or crocheting or knitting, whatever your craft of choice is. I would like to know, get to know you guys better. There's also a war thread, which if you remember from the previous week's episode, it's a work at rest. And there's also a Clarissa Explains It All thread where you can just ask me anything basically about crocheting, knitting, why I started crafting, that type of stuff. There is also a what are you hooked on thread where you could just pop in and tell me what you're currently working on at the moment, because I would love to know what sort of crafting you guys do. I also wanted to say that this week's episode is extra special. I decided to make it extra special for you guys, and that also means it is extra long because we are approaching the end of summer in Puerto Rico, which is where I'm from, if I haven't previously mentioned, and classes around here start the 8th of August. So we are approaching the end of summer for us. We are a tropical island, so I guess some people would consider it summer all year round. As part of this extra special episode, the other thing I wanted to mention is that we are almost at 50 subscribers. So thank you to anybody who's subscribed, because that means that you are really enjoying what I have to say and you want to know more, and that you don't find me, and that you find this podcast entertaining, to say the least. Sorry about that. My pen just fell to the floor. But since we're almost approaching 50 subscribers, I wanted to sort of mention that as part of this special summer special, I am considering that when we get to 100 subscribers to host a crochet along. And I already have an idea of what I want this crochet along to be. So if you find this interesting, if you would like to participate in a crochet along, then please let me know. It's when we reach 100 subscribers, and I'll give you more details about the crochet along later on in this podcast. And you will see why I'm saving maybe not the best for last, but certainly some very, very interesting things that I'll be showing in this podcast this week. So, you know, it's just time to get on towards the crafty crochet goodness. And this week, I've got finished objects. Yes, guys, I have finished objects, which is, in and of itself, amazing, because it's not that I'm not... I consider myself a kind of normal speed crocheter, but I am very bad managing my time between work and other crafting that I do, and baking and then crochet. It's just, I find it hard to fit it all in. But the first finished object I wanted to share with you guys this week is what I'm wearing. And let me just kind of fix the collar a bit. What I'm wearing is a crochet collar, and this was made using Aunt Lydia's yarn. The colorway is Lime, which you can see here, and it is a size 3. It's also made using a 2.75mm crochet hook, which is a US size C. It was a Clover Amour crochet hook, which I can't find at the moment because I've been using it a lot. Frankly, I don't know where I put it. This pattern, I think, is by but it is a Crochet Peter Pan collar. If you can, let me just get a bit closer so you guys can see. And I really loved crocheting on this. It was super speedy crochet, and this button is just kind of a button I found among my limited collection that I'm not sure where I got it from. But this was just wonderful to crochet on. It was really fast and it's very lightweight, perfect for summer. And the other finished object that I wanted to share with you guys is a crochet cupcake pin cushion. It's a cupcake pin cushion, guys. And I made this because I plan on participating in the Hollyburn Skirt Sew Along hosted by Katie from Inside Number 23 podcast, which starts in August, so it hasn't started yet. If you want to join, got plenty of time to join. And I made this because I think it's just very useful bracelet. Put it on, and now it looks like it's got confetti on it. This was made using 3 different types of yarn. Actually, it's all scrap yarn. This one is just an acrylic cream color yarn with stellina. You can kind of see the little bit of sparkles that it has there. The bottom of the cupcake was crocheted with a 50% Egyptian cotton, 50% acrylic blend, and the bracelet was crocheted using mercerized cotton, Aunt Lydia's mercerized cotton, size 10. So I used 2 strands held together. I did treble crochets, and then I just went around the band twice doing round the band once doing a row of single crochets, and my button is a little plastic spool. So that is it for my finished objects this week. It is time to move on to my other crochet segment, which is what am I hooked on? This is a big project, guys. As you saw in the introduction to this video, I was crocheting using kind of what I would call a zebra print yarn. And I was crocheting, as I promised I would in the last episode, the WonderWool sweater by Wool and the Gang. And I'm calling it my Miss DeVille sweater. Excuse me while I grab this. Okay, so this is all the parts of the WonderWool sweater. Couple of things before I start talking about the actual crochet. This is a knitting pattern that I decided to translate into crochet because for the reasons that I mentioned in the previous episode, which is that I didn't want to invest on the knitting needles because I've been spending a lot of money on yarn, so I had to just kind of not sacrifice but prioritize. And so I translated the knitting pattern into crochet. It is the free pattern by Wool and the Gang. You can find it on YouTube or in the Wool and the Gang website. So go check it out because it's a really easy knitting pattern if you're just beginning, if you're just learning how to knit. And it's she explains it really well. It takes you step by step of the whole process. So whole process is that you start out with 4 pieces that you then sew together. So you've got the front and the back piece and the 2 sleeves, and then you sew those together. A couple of changes that I did to be able to crochet the pattern were, number 1, the type of hooks that I used. I used a 15mm plastic crochet hook, and I used an 8mm wooden crochet hook, which I always keep in a bag because I love it. I believe this is a Deborah Norville, and I love this wooden crochet hook. Any excuse I've got to crochet on it, it's welcome by me. I love using it. But anyway, so I adjusted the sizes because in the pattern they call for a 25mm knitting needle and then a 12mm knitting needle. So I figured you're almost going half a size, so let's go 15mm and 8. That's what I had in my hook stash, excuse me. And The yarn, I was very good and I've saved all the ball bands this time. All of them. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ball bands that I've used completely. Number 10 is to sew in the whole project because I have finished crocheting the pieces, but I'm missing to sew them together. So the yarn that I used is Wilds by the Plymouth Yarn Company. It is made in Italy. It's 100 grams, approximately 98 yards. Recommended 13 US 13 needles, hand wash, lay flied. And it's 49% acrylic, 25% alpaca, 25% wool, and 1% nylon. And the color is 872. Very, very creative. I love it when they say numbers, but it is basically white with spots of black. That's why I'm calling it my Miss DeVille sweater. So we can start with the sleeves. The sleeves were what I most altered in the pattern because in general I followed all the instructions for the knitting pattern, but I did it in crochet. Except for the sleeves, she uses a 24 stitches. I did 20 because I like my cuffs to be a lot smaller. I've got a very tiny wrist and the person I am going to give this to also has a small wrist. And I did a front post and back post double crochet to form the ridge of the cuff. And all over the sweater I used the camel stitch, I believe, which gives you just this complete rows of half double crochets. And this is what it looks like in the back. I haven't sewn in any ends or anything. And for the sleeve, I started with 20 stitches, and then every seventh row, I increased 2 stitches. So by the end, when I had my sleeve long enough, it was 28 rows in total. She said it was 28 rows in total. I counted by stitches, so I've got 28 stitches on both sleeves. The cuff I crocheted with the 8mm crochet hook, and then the rest of the sleeve was done with the 15mm crochet hook. Now on for the huge blanket part, basically, which is the front and the back. I kind of tied them together, so excuse me while I shuffle around trying to get them. This is, I've actually sewn it together at the shoulder already. Just, you think you can see here where I sewed it. Yeah, that ridge there, that's where I sewed it together, one side. So for the front and the back, I followed the same instructions she did. I I crocheted 28 stitches in foundation half double crochet. All the parts of this pattern were done in half double crochet except for the collar. The collar was done in single crochet. And you can see it's a pretty big, chunky, cozy sweater. It's not meant to be tight-fitting at all, but since I used a smaller hook size, I'm pretty sure it'll turn out just a bit smaller. But so what you do is that you knit. It's done stocking stitch if you knit it, so it's knitting and purling. What I did was, as I said, the half double crochet in the front loop, and then on the other side it's just half double crochet into both loops. For 21.5 inches. Both front and back are done for 21.5 inches. The difference comes that the front, this is my front, you actually have to do a bit of shaping around the neckline. So in the case of my sweater, I think I half double crocheted 9 stitches in, then I slip stitched all the way around, and then I half double crocheted the rest of the stitches that were left over. I think I've got 12 or 14, I don't remember the exact number. I wrote it down because I am planning on doing writing this in the notes when I put the finished project on Ravelry because I didn't knit the pattern, I crocheted it. So there are some differences. But this is, I can't call it a 9 3/4 finished, but all the crochet pieces are crocheted. I just have to attach the sleeves and then sew in the sides to have a finished object, which is very, very, very exciting if you asked me. This was wonderful yarn to work with. It's very soft. It didn't split, even though if you notice it looks kind of like a braid. It didn't split. It was wonderful to crochet with. Very squishy, and it'll be really, really cozy for a just maybe a stay-in sweater if you want to bundle up really well. And as I mentioned, I've used nine bowls of 100 gram 98 yards. So I got this yarn on Craftsy. It was on super sale. I think it was $4. A lot of the yarn that I mentioned I will either have bought on yarn.com or Craftsy, just a disclaimer. But that is it for what am I hooked on. This project has been the center of my crocheting, except for the break that I took to make the collar and the cupcake pin cushion. So the other thing I wanted to share with you today is also a finished object, but it is part of my snail knitting segment, which was previously known as my knitting experiment. But since I've already experimented and finished one object, yes, I have a finished object. Pair of socks. It is not just one sock, it is now a pair of socks. And look at them, look at them, look at them. I'm so excited. They match, they match. One of them looks a bit more stretched out than the other because that was the one I showed in the first episode, which is the first one I knit. This is my second one and it's looking lovely, lovely. I actually, as I said last time, I feel that I can knit socks if they are on a 3.25 millimeter crochet hook. If they are on a 3.25 meter knitting needle. I felt they zoomed by, and as such I did buy more yarn that I can't believe I forgot to bring it with me. So I'm back. I went to go get the yarn because it was unforgivable that I was going to talk about the other socks I'm going to knit and don't have the yarn to show you. So this is the yarn that I bought. It's actually showing a brighter purple than it is. It's more plum color, and this I bought it at yarn.com, and it is Sublime Baby Cashmere Merino Silk DK, and it is sublime. It's the level of squishiness that this has is I love it. So it's 75% extra fine merino, 20% silk, and 5% cashmere. And I think it'll be just delectable. It is a DK weight yarn. The shade is 0217, very creative. And the dye lot is 37332. And I will be using this to knit the blueberry waffle socks because I've seen a lot of people knit those socks, and I always for some reason thought that they were in a fingering weight. The pattern actually says DK weight, and I was like, I bought yarn, DK weight yarn for knitting socks. It's perfect. So that is what I will be working on. I will be casting on another pair of socks. No, I haven't forgotten about my Doom Gloom socks, but or was it Bloom Doom socks? Can't even remember what I called them. Isn't that just a bit out there? Can't remember what I called my socks. I've worked on them a little bit, but I think I won't show them again until I actually have a half-finished object. But isn't it exciting? Look at that. Oh, it's beautiful. So I promised you guys, so I mentioned that this episode was going to be extra special because it is the end of the summer special. And as part of this special episode, I am going to have a co-host with me today, or should I say I'm going to have a special guest with me today. Now, this special guest is currently not paying attention to the fact that she's being announced. So, excuse me. Okay. And the special guest is my mom.
Hi, everybody.
So I decided to invite my mom on this week's episode because my mom has been a huge part of my crafting life. She's actually the reason I craft. So, Mom, how did you make that happen? How did you get me involved in crafting?
Well,
talk loud.
Remember you had your two sisters. No. Okay.
You can't.
Well, remember you had your brother and sisters, your older brothers and sisters, who were very much into sports, and we tried to get you interested in swimming and baton twirling and stuff like that, but it didn't work out, and so I had to have something to do with your free time, and I tried to get you then interested in creative things since I saw your inclination towards liking being able to make your own little books, little scrapbooks, or to put together maybe purses or stuff like that. I started buying little kits, and when I saw, well, they were interesting to you as long as you had somebody to sit with and to show them to. So then I went on to trying to find classes around the island where people could actually teach you to do things, and Michael's was there back then, and so it was a big inspiration for your crafting. You loved that store. Yes. And they would always give...
We just don't have it here anymore.
We just don't have it anymore, but they would always give their classes that we could go to during the week.
I remember it was at night.
Yes, we did some painting there.
Christmas ornaments.
Then the big fad of jewelry came around, and they started giving jewelry classes nearby, so I took you to take some of those, but since they were a little costly, I would tell you, well, you go and learn how to make the things, come back home, teach me how to make them, and then we tried to share it that way.
But I ended up not liking making jewelry that much, and Mom was the one who really picked up jewelry making, as you can see some of the samples in the background.
Yes, this was partially my workshop for making jewelry, and I did that about 6 or 7 years, on and off. And so once that didn't work, we tried to get your grandmother, who's a seamstress, to teach you how to sew.
That didn't stick. I was too young. And then when I was around 15, you tried to get my aunt to teach me how to crochet. But back then I thought it was the most boring thing in the world, and it didn't stick. But I remember clearly when I started to crochet, I already mentioned the first crochet project I ever did. But the reason I got into it was because freshman year, actually I think it was orientation week for freshmen, I saw this girl with a very beautiful purse, and I asked her about it. She said, oh, my mom crocheted this for me. And it was, I remember it had some aquas, purples, and pinks. And I came home that day and I was like, Mom, I'm going to learn how to crochet because I want to make a purse. You brought the purse?
Was it crocheted? I thought it was sewn.
No, it was crocheted, completely crocheted. But I...
Oh, I saved that bag, yes. Now, are you sure you want me to show this?
Yeah. So this, that's a very pretty button. Huh. This was my first ever
9 3/4 project because it was really never finished.
Yes, it was.
No,
it was
it doesn't
just
have the
I made the handle. I made it too long. I didn't know crochet stretched, and it stretched a lot down to my knees, and it was very uncomfortable to carry it around. But look, I even sewed a jean pocket on it. Very creative. Maybe this could become a project bag.
Maybe, yes.
I'll just have to sew a zipper on it. So I told Mom, and Mom was like, well, I don't know how to crochet, but we could search on YouTube.
I don't know how to crochet
did.
flowers. I didn't know how to
Yeah.
crochet because I had an older sister who did the same thing with us during the summer vacations. She always wanted to keep us occupied, so she would teach us crafts, and she taught us how to crochet, taught us how to knit. Although with knitting, I basically can cast out and do a knit stitch, and that's it. But I said I was sure, I never made a flower, but I was sure that we could go to YouTube and find somebody who would teach us how to make it, and
they
we
did.
did.
And these are the wonkiest flowers I've ever.
Well, we made lots of different flowers. These were the first ones, but we got better at making the flowers. We made the puffy flowers and everything, and I got so into it that I decided, hey, it was about, what was it, maybe September, October, and I said, hey, I know, I'm going to make a blanket for Christmas for my older daughter.
Yeah.
And I started on that one big project.
Yeah.
As
It was
Clarissa continued with her small projects.
Granny square blanket, and I couldn't be left behind, so that's when I picked up the yarn to crochet the scarf. And then after that, it was really a huge pause in my crafting until I moved to Syracuse, and out of necessity, I started to crochet scarves and hats. And because best of all, my Michaels was very accessible over there, and I practically lived in that store, and Wegmans, which is the supermarket, and Target. Those are my 3 stores. If you ever ask me what I will forever remember from Syracuse, it's Wegmans, best supermarket ever. If you ever have a chance to visit Wegmans, do so. Michaels, amazing. And Target, well, because graduate students, low budget, Target solves everything. But yeah, so
when she came back from Syracuse, from New York, she showed me the many things that she had crocheted over the winter. I think it was the necessity, the bare necessity, the cold that she hated so much that just she really got on a roll here, crocheting scarves, crocheting hats for her sister, for her brother,
for my
whoever
cousin.
she could find to give them to. And so she got very good at it, to the extent where I have always admired that something that I would look at in a book, a pattern that, oh, I would like that so much, but when I looked at the stitches involved in the actual crocheting, I was like, oh, I don't think I can do that. And she'd always take on those kinds of projects. And this summer,
the next big one we did was the Katniss cowl.
Oh, yes, okay.
And that was because my sister is a big Hunger Games fan, and she had seen the Katniss cowl in the Catching Fire and on the internet. So she emailed Mom and me, and she's like, hey, do you guys think this would be a project that I could do as my first knitting project? And we were kind of Debbie Downer about it. I was like, I don't know how to knit, but that does not look like a good, easy knit project for a beginner. And so Mom and I started looking at crochet Katniss cowl patterns. We downloaded I think it was a total of 5. We bought 2 on Etsy and Craftsy, then we downloaded the rest. They were free downloads, and
we decided to each make a pattern,
version of
to
it.
each make a different version of the Katniss cowl. It was our first interesting experience crocheting garments and the same project, and as doing so we realized several things about the way we each crocheted, and we also learned together that following a pattern, it doesn't always come out exactly like it looks, because it all depends on how sometimes you interpret what the person has written. And we all know that we write things and we read them because we know what it says, and it's fine, but somebody else will read it and I'm confused here. And so we each got to parts in our projects where we were like, hey, this is just,
I'm done.
I don't want to do this anymore. We had to motivate each other to continue. Tore them apart a couple of times. Yeah. Most of the problems we had were in the back part, right? Maybe you want to insert a picture here so they can actually see what they look like. But the back part in both, if you've ever seen the movie, she's got like these big braids, cord-like braids going down the back. They're asymmetrical because they don't really, one is longer than the other. That was the most difficult part in both of those patterns. Yeah. Getting it to look right, but
we finished them.
I think we did good in the long run. She We sent them to her. She used them. She was happy with them, as much as we could tell, because she's not all into crafting like we are. She did scrapbooking as an engineer. She's very to the point. Either this serves my purpose or it doesn't serve my purpose. But she's not like us that she goes in all the woving in the wood. Oh, this looks so pretty. Oh, I love that stitch. No,
yeah.
so
Sometimes
so
we get really
couldn't
excited,
get that out of her.
and we share like, oh, look at what we did. She's like, you guys and your crafting.
Yeah,
like,
it's one of the reasons why I thought that getting Clarissa to craft has been good for our relationship, because when you craft together, you have to share. I mean, since she knows that I've been doing a little crocheting, I know she's doing crochet. If I see something I think she'll like or that looks pretty, that looks different, then I'll show it to her, and she'll do the same to me with jewels or with fabric or with yarn.
Even though she doesn't get my yarn obsession, guys.
But I'm getting there. I'm getting with the podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm getting there, and so it's hard to be angry at each other since we live in the same house and we have the same basically temperaments. We can get on each other's nerves, and so it doesn't last long, you know, because you have to have that person there when you go back to your crafting. Oh my goodness, I need to share this with somebody, and she always comes back to me, or I always end up with her. So it's also allowed us to form a relationship and to
a crafting relationship.
But you know, the crafting relationship carries on, transfers on to our daily, the way we get along. So that has been good too. And
that's kind of how we ended up with matching collars. I got home one day from work and Mom was finishing sewing the button on this collar. I was like, what's that? She's like, oh, I found this crochet collar pattern on the internet. I'm like, I want one. So that's how
I had sent her a picture during the day first to kind of get her motivated there with, look what I've been doing since I've been on vacation now, and she's not. So,
whoa.
Yep, she came home and she wanted to do it, and so it's the same pattern, but you'll see that if you look up close, that they look different because of the fact that we crochet differently.
She crochets loosely, I crochet very tightly. So even though it's the same pattern, you can... And
it's the same size yarn.
Yeah, it's the same. Aunt Lydia's,
same company, same number.
Aunt Lydia's size 3. I already showed you the lime. I don't have any left of the white, but it's the same company, same yarn thickness.
What needle did you use?
You know, good question. Now I don't remember if it was 3.75 or 2.75.
Well, I think I used 3.7. Okay, I take it back. Most of the things I've been crocheting this week used a 4mm needle. We don't have one, and for some reason we couldn't find any.
Crochet hook.
What did I say?
Knitting needle.
I'm sorry. This
is a crochet.
You see the connection here. The relationship allows us to share even her nightmares, her doom projects, and they just kind of like stick with me. Yes, we were looking for a 4mm crochet needle, and we just couldn't find it in any of the craft stores here. So mostly I used a 375 because I crocheted loose, and I figured it would be to try and get it more to look like the final product that the author of the pattern is producing. I wanted it to always shrink a little bit. My
designer. It's designer, right? Okay.
So should we talk a little bit about what you've been doing this week?
Yeah, they already saw everything I've been doing.
Okay, well, this was another attempt to connect with Clarissa and her crafting. Although like I say, I was taught to crochet by one of my older sisters. I wanted to connect that crocheting with the jewelry that I make. I've liked always multimedia projects. They call my attention a lot, and in jewelry, one of the most expensive parts of the jewelry is the wire. If you're using good wire, if you're using the findings, if you're using good findings, and I always like to use good findings and good wire because I want to give away something, or I'm not that greedy a jeweler. I like to give my stuff away. I like the idea of living on in my crafting, that I'll be gone, but that will still be here and I will be remembered through it. You know, that type of thing. Yeah. So I like to make it in good metals that somebody can shine up and keep and pass on to somebody else. I don't like to make things that are going to be thrown away.
It's kind of like me. I like crafting for other people because what I love to crochet the most are hats and scarves. There's never winter in Puerto Rico. It's practically, well, cold for us is 72 degrees. So I tend to knit up a lot of, did the same thing you did. I tend to crochet a lot of scarves and hats to give them away to my cousins in the States or friends that I have that have recently moved to the States and have never heard of winter or second winter or winter storms. So,
I don't really understand the definition of cold. Like cold here is the freezer or maybe the refrigerator.
I guess I remember one of my friends, he moved to Illinois, and as a going away present, I made him a hat and scarf set. It was a waffle pattern for the scarf, and he was wearing it when it was 50 degrees outside. He sent me a picture because it was also raining, so he's with his umbrella, his scarf all bundled up, and his little beanie. He's like, I'm cold. I was like, oh, you poor thing. Wait till it hits negative.
Well, now that you say that, yes, the other thing when I was trying to connect your crocheting to my crafting, my jewelry crafting, was that I didn't want to use the bulky yarns because we do live on an island and it's very tropical, and I wanted to make something in a type of yarn that could be used actually, you know. So a lot of people that crochet here use the thin cotton,
Aunt Lydia's. That's what we most
right, this type of yarn, and so I crocheted most of what I did this weekend in that type of yarn.
This was the second collar you made, right?
This is the second version of the collar. It's a vintage collar. I believe it was on the site of, I think she's called Creative Inspirations, where creative, she puts an 8 instead of an A. And she's got a vintage collar there. And like I say, when you try to repeat a pattern from somebody else, it's never, well, for me, it never comes out exactly. Number one, I always have a mistake hidden somewhere in my work. Even when I did my jewelry, there was always one mistake that I didn't want to break up the whole piece, so I just left it there. And I said, that's my signature. And so it didn't come out exactly the way hers came out because of that, because several times in the counts of the shells, I would do an extra double crochet or whatever. And then also, because I was using a smaller needle, and I believe I was using thinner yarn than she was using, it came out shorter than what I wanted. This is pretty short. I tried it on with several of the blouses that I have, and I still would need it a little bit longer to, you know, actually look like it's part of the garment you're wearing. So I wanted this to be a little longer, so I did add on here several. I think it was like 3 or 4 extra rows. And of course, you know, adding my jewelry to it. These are Swarovski crystals, and at the top it's got small beads that are jade. Malaysia jade it's called, and it's got the vintage button.
Oh, it's got a vintage button
at the back
that I found at my grandma's house. My grandmother, the seamstress, she doesn't really sew anymore because she's got arthritis, very bad arthritis on her hands. But I was making myself a sandwich, and for some reason on the kitchen counter there was this button. It's actually like from the 70s, and well, I quickly commandeered said button. I did ask her permission though.
So this is another one of the differences. The pattern that the final result of what she crochets is closed together here. I couldn't get mine to close like that, so I decided this was going to be the back. Since this one is to the front, I put this one at the back, and then just the beads up the front.
Little yarn. It did use most of it.
Yes, it used a lot more than the other collars. It's got a lot more
going on.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Which was the other one that you did? Was it this one?
And then I went on to make, yes, this was also a vintage, this was supposed to be a necklace. It's a collar, but in the form of a necklace, because...
Oh, and that one is based on this pattern.
Necklace. It's based on this pattern found in this magazine, which is it's a Spanish version of a crochet magazine. And they have bits of jewelry in it, in that edition. And so I wanted to recreate it somehow. I didn't have the chain. If you'll notice that they have here a chain of, at the top of
kind of like square,
crystals. Because I went to this craft store here and they wanted to charge me 99 cents per inch.
No, $1.99.
$1.99 per inch, and I, yes, made it worse. I wasn't. So I figured I could just do a string, a chain of beads, separated by seed beads, and single crochet over that to connect it. And then my chain, the gold chain here, notice that it's not long enough. We're supposed to reach the end. It's supposed to be 22 centimeters long. It didn't reach it, so I just used whatever I had and kind of like filled up the corners here with, I believe they were treble crochets. One thing I learned new in this product that I have never done before was blocking. Clarissa had been looking into knitting her projects and blocking them so that they looked flat, and they looked this shape, you know, if they were square, they looked like squares, rectangles like rectangles. So I learned to block this.
By the way, I still need a sock blocker, and I was wondering if anybody could recommend a sock blocker. I'm specifically looking with the gorgeous ones with the little sheep on top of the sock blocker. I want a little sheep, big.
Okay, so
Sorry.
yeah, this was the blocked finished product, and I think it looks pretty cute. Somebody might like wearing that. I think I'm satisfied with the way this one came out.
I think it's gorgeous, and I'm not a big fan of purple, but
yes,
I love it.
Well, I did it in purple because I had bought several
Purple. Aunt Lydia's.
schemes of yarn that week, and so
Aunt Lydia's as well.
different colors, and that was the only color that I hadn't used.
Yeah, because we bought. Let me just show you the
Several.
stash. And I'm still missing the blue one.
Yeah, the bluish green.
And the cream color. I don't know what I did with those, but it's a significant stash.
But we've been using it all, and we have plans to continue using it. At least I have some plans to continue using it.
I have some.
For example, this color, this is like it's called a
Copper,
luster, a copper luster.
It's like a light bronze.
It's called luster copper. And when I saw that, I remembered that I had some shells that had been given to me.
Oh, that's right.
And I decided that
Where is it?
one of the things that I wanted to do was encase a shell
Where is it?
in yarn. Is it hanging on one of those dolls?
Yeah, it's.
I want to get it.
You're gonna have to get up. Excuse us. We did try to be very organized, but there's always something, isn't there?
Well, I kept it close at least. So I had this big shell, and what I wanted to do was encase it in. Sorry about that. I wanted to encase it in basically just all one of those
Crochet.
magic circles and double crochets. It wasn't anything fancy. And then I had to make a bail so that I could connect the casing to the bail. And finally,
Is it veil or
a bail. Bail.
With a B?
B-A-I-L.
Look, okay.
Okay, and then I made the rope. I wanted to make it all completely yarn, but then I messed up, and at the end I put on the clasps but it would have easily been able to just crochet at the end a loop on one side and a ball on the other side and make the whole thing out of crochet. This is like my end of summer, because in a while nobody will be having shells around their necks.
Yeah. Even though we live on a tropical island, Puerto Ricans, we don't tend to visit the beach during December. After summer, nobody visits the beach up until April.
And like it's just like we follow the seasonal fashions of the States.
But
like,
it's also
up to a certain point you can see shells on clothes, and then you don't see them anymore.
Yeah, but it's also you want water?
Excuse me.
In a gorgeous mug, but it's just water. Too hot for tea, guys. I do drink tea. Well, we drink tea, but it's too hot for tea. Oh,
I'm not used to talking as much as Clarissa is, even though I am a professor, but
this
she
is a
talks more
Globe
than I do.
In mug. If you've never checked out the Globe In website, do. I got this kit for Christmas. It was a hot cocoa kit. Very, very delicious hot cocoa.
Hand painted,
Hand painted, handmade. They tend to source to local artists that they find. Kind of. Just check out the website. We are
not necessarily local, because they
well, they do it from around the world.
I think it's international, because
yeah.
This was like from Peru, and the chocolates were from Peru.
No, this was from Sri Lanka.
Oh, okay.
I think I don't remember.
But every month or so they create a basket, and in that basket they have different
it's basically
items
like
that are crafted by artisans.
Like a magazine. You buy a subscription or you can buy the basket just one time. In general, a basket is $50 unless they put it on sale. But we're not paid to advertise.
And they're good at shipping and
we're not paid to advertise this. I really
just,
like this.
It was just, we thought it was a good idea of getting artisans together because they help them create their business,
Yeah.
you know. And, well, Clarissa, aside from my venture into sandals and outdoor crochet shoes, basically most of what I worked on was
a challenge
jewelry.
because Mom decided it was going to be her birthday project, and as it was her birthday, I would have to crochet with her. And that was a bad idea because, as we've mentioned, I crochet very tightly, she crochets loosely.
So I was going to make one shoe and she was going to make the other.
Well, you were gonna, it's the pair. You were gonna make
one shoe from the pair, and she was going to make one shoe from the pair.
Yeah, and my shoe was shorter. For some reason, had less stitches.
Okay, so we'll include the picture there. Look at the picture so you can see the difference between the two. I'm still going to wear them now. I had this pattern. I also purchased.
Do you want to like lift your foot up?
No. This pattern I also purchased on Ravelry, and
we purchased.
But I also had to. I believe her site is called Sophia and Me.
Yeah. So or Sophie and Me.
Or Sophie and Me.
I'll put the name.
And she has a lot of outdoor shoes, and she even makes her own sole, the insole, the outsole, and gives you all the instructions on how to do them.
Off so this was one of the shoes. I don't know if it's mine or yours or yours.
I know it's mine.
Oh, you know.
Yes, the feel of them. I even ended up with in some places more stitches on mine, less stitches on hers. I don't know what the stitch count because we were following the pattern. And we were,
so this is the shoe.
It's not the exact shoe because her shoe doesn't have this part here. It just has all this. Also, I used just a regular flip flop that I purchased. This is, if you've been watching the podcast, this is some of the leftover fabric from Clarissa's.
I don't think I've showed the Sassy Librarian
blouse.
But I did show you the fabric.
But she did show the fabric, and so. I used a $1 placemat that I found in Walmart with the plastic covering, and I peeled off the plastic covering and used the foam at the bottom that still had a little bit of stickiness left to it to glue the fabric to it and then glued it. And it's a little different from hers because she makes her own sole. I just used the flip-flop because
we tried that.
There were other crocheters on the island that I have, particularly my next door neighbor, that I have been watching her make shoes like that on flip-flops. And so it's a little bit different in that sense. And
the yarn is...
I had to add this because it was just too big.
Yeah.
It kept falling off.
The yarn is Classic Elite Yarns Classic Silk. It's their cotton, nylon, and silk blend. The same one I used for my socks.
So yeah, you can wear your sock
with the shoe.
I did make another pair, which I gifted to my eldest. Well, she's my oldest daughter. She's got a good job, good standing, and so she practically could purchase anything she would like from her local TJ Maxx and Marshalls and Target or whatever the store she likes. But so it's hard to find something that I can give her that she couldn't buy for herself. And so mostly her, my daughter, even my youngest daughter, I tried to gift them things that are made by me. So
aren't handmade gifts the best, guys?
Yes, they
That's
are.
why I started my...
I think they're the best. I always worry that after I go through all these hours and hours and hours, somebody will throw it away at some point. But I did make one pair for her and sent them to her. She told me they fit, and she's supposed to send me a picture of her wearing them so I can include it here, and you can see a different style. But more or less the same thing, a flip-flop that I crocheted on top of, and that it could be used to maybe go outside. Yeah. Made in cotton, they're both the yarns I used for cotton.
That one is Frog Tree Picabo, 50% bamboo, 50% cotton.
And it was in like a light blue color?
The color was robin egg. It was a light blue.
I'm sorry I didn't think to bring it. I'm not as...
I do have
able as Clarissa with the podcast. I'm not sure about how to get ready for it. And this is my first one. I'll get better at it if I'm ever invited again.
It was my fault. I forgot to bring the yarn. But so I think that is all of the crafty crochet jewelry goodness we've got to share with you guys this week. If you really enjoyed our co-hosting, our special guest, don't we look alike?
Terrific pair.
Yeah. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Oh, and I did promise I was going to talk a little bit about the crochet along that I was planning when we hit 100 subscribers. And that was inspired by the crochet my mom did this week, because I was planning on making it a jewelry crochet along. If you knit, feel free to knit as well. I would love to see what knitting jewelry looks like. I've never knit jewelry. You've never knit jewelry?
No, I don't think I ever will, but
so
who knows?
Yeah, let me know if that's something that would interest you guys, a crochet along for crochet jewelry when I hit 100 subscribers, and I don't know. Let us know. We'll see.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Bye. Happy crafting. Hit the